به نام خدا. هموطنان گرامی سلام، وقت شما بخیر. هر جایی که هستید یا کنار خانواده های محترمتان خوب و خوش و صحتمند باشید. از صفحه جهانی سیاست افغانستان در خدمت شما هستیم با حضور مهمانان گرامی. دانشمند و محقق برجسته پاکستان جناب پاکستانی-رسول رسول بخش رییس مهمان مرکزی ماست. همچنان از جناب پروفسور زمان استانیزی خواهش کردیم در میزگرد با حضور ایشان و همچنان با همکاری دانشمند گرامی جناب آقای احمد حسینی جهت ترجمانی و توضیحات و نحو در ارتباط با کمک در سیاست افغانستان با ما باشند تا بتوانیم از عمق استراتژی سیاست‌های منطقه علی خصوص همسایگان با خبر شویم و دور از تعلقات سیاسی و حقوقی. اگر دانشمندان کشورهای مختلف علی خصوص شرایط منازعه دارند در ابعاد جغرافیایی یا سیاسی یا مسائل دیگر، بتوانند یک روابط حسنه بین خود ایجاد کنند، میتوانند در سیاست‌گذاری‌های دولت‌ها و نظام‌های خودشان تاثیر مثبت بگذارند. از این رو صفحه سیاست افغانستان بران است تا میزگردهای از این دست تشکیل بدهد تا بتوانیم سوء تفاهمات احتمالی را برطرف نموده و چالش‌ها را به حداقل برسانیم. حضور مهمانان گرامی هر یک جناب پروفسور رسول بخش رییس از استاد دانشگاه لاهور پاکستان و شخصیت محقق و دانشمند و همچنان جناب پروفسور زمان استانیزی و جناب آقای احمد حسینی را به صفحه سیاست افغانستان خوش آمد گفته. شما هم میهنان عزیز نیز میتوانید با ما باشید در صورتی که با شخصیت‌های متخصص، محقق، مدرس، پژوهشگر آشنا هستید. میتوانید با ما هماهنگ نمایید تا بتوانیم دانش و بینش آنها را از طریق صفحه سیاست افغانستان برای جامعه به نحوی از آنها عرضه کنیم. سپاسگزارم. حضور جناب رئیس را خوش آمد میگوییم. جناب آقای حسینی میخواهیم زحمت ترجمانی را بکشن و از مهمان گرامی بخواهیم که در پاسخها بسیار کوتاه در واقع توضیح داشته باشند تا بتوانیم پرسش‌های بیشتر را از ایشان بگیریم.
We welcome our two professors, one Professor Zaman Estanizi, who is teaching in the United States of America, and also Professor Rasul Bakhsh Rais, who is a lecturer in Lahore University. It is a great pleasure to bring together scholars from different countries involved in Afghanistan to eliminate misunderstanding and influence those who make decisions in these respective countries. And we hope that more scholars are coming together in order to discuss these issues so we can have a better understanding. And for that matter, we start this interview. In the beginning, I would like to request Mr. Rais to be short, so the translation is going to be made as exact as possible.
قبل از شروع برنامه از جناب استانیزی میخوایم خوش آمد داشته باشم و پرسش اولیه را مطرح خواهم کرد.
سلام به حضور مهمان ها. ببخشید شما گفتن من سوال اول مطرح کنم.
از مهمان محترم خوش آمد داشته باشید، من پرسش رو مطرح خواهم کرد.
Okay. I would like to welcome everyone, especially Professor Rais, to our gathering here, and we hope to get enlightened by his input on his analysis regarding the current crisis in our neighboring country.
بسیار تشکر. پرسش ابتدایی از جناب رئیس میخواهیم راجع به وضعیت میدانی پاکستان علی خصوص اتفاقات هفته‌ای که گذشت یک توضیح و تحلیل داشته باشم تا بریم سراغ پرسش‌های دیگر.
Mr. رییس, would you please give us an analysis of the current situation on the ground in Pakistan?
Well, the situation in Pakistan is unstable, fluid, and it can be characterized as a confrontation between the government of 13 political parties and opposition, which is Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf led by Imran Khan. But this confrontation is not new, and it did not start with the ouster of Imran Khan about 1 year back, but it has been since the 2013 elections, when EMLN formed the government and Imran Khan challenged accuracy, legitimacy, and transparency of the elections, which had brought Muslim League and other parties into power. So it has been for the last 10 years, more or less. And we need to, I will try to explain the reasons for this confrontation. But the situation is very dire, complex, difficult, and number of forces that have bearing on politics, economy, and society. I would like to explain those forces.
شرایط پاکستان بی‌ثبات و مواج است. تقابل بین حکومت و گروه‌های سیاسی به وجود آمده. این رویارویی در گذشته هم وجود داشته. مخصوصا بعد از سال 2013 در ارتباط با انتخاباتی که MLM هم در او حضور داشت و خود عمران خان در ارتباط با شفافیت انتخابات ملاحظات داشت و بنابراین وضع در پاکستان یک وضع بی‌ثبات است و ما در ارتباط با اوضاع این کشور نکات بیشتری هم دارم که میشه که باز اونا را بیان کنم.
احتمال لغزش نظام سیاسی پاکستان محتمل است؟
Do you think there is a possibility for the Pakistani regime to slide or to collapse?
I don't think it is going to collapse for two reasons. One is that it has a majority in the parliament, and although this majority is not a majority that is generally expected in a parliamentary form of government, because 20 to 30 members that now support the government have come from Tehreek-e-Insaf, and Tehreek-e-Insaf has left the National Assembly. So it has the majority. The second thing is that it has a government of allies in Sindh, and now it has caretaker governments of its own choice in the Punjab, the largest province, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the government of Balochistan is that of the allies that share power as the national government. But the most important factor why it is not going to collapse is that this government has the blessings of the security establishment of Pakistan. And without their intervention, that is what we know here in Pakistan, that is generally believed that behind the scenes, it was the security establishment that brought this government into power, and that is the narrative of Imran Khan and his party.
من فکر نمی کنم که حکومت در پاکستان در حال سقوط باشه. بلکه امروز هم در پارلمان اکثریت داره. موضوعی است که پشت سر دولت یا حامی دولت ارتش است و خب یا یک مسئله هست که در ارتباط با موافقت عمران خان در مسئله به قدرت رسیدن ارتش نقش داشته که بعدا وضع به این جاها رسیده و در عین حال در اسامبلی هم حدود 20 تا 30 نفر از اعضای تحریک انصاف از نشنال اسامبلی خارج شدند و در ایالت‌های مختلف حکومت‌هایی که به عنوان کیرتکر و سرپرست تشکیل شده اونا در صدد ایجاد مدیریت و سیاست ورزی هستند و به این شکل جریانات روند خود را طی میکنند. Please correct me, Mr. استانیزی, in case I forget or make a mistake. As you know, this is a direct translation and sometimes it is difficult to remember everything.
You're doing wonderful. I don't think you need any corrections. Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Yes, please.
خب سقوط احتمالی نظام سیاسی پاکستان بر درجه که ایشان محتمل میدانند تاثیراتش روی هند و افغانستان به چه مقدار میدانم و من اینجا توضیح عرض میکنم. حالا این بخشش اگر نخواستیم برای مهمان نگویید و مخاطب ما مردم افغانستان است. نظام هایی که وابسته به کشورهای بیرونی بودند هستند و یا خواهند بود بدانند که یک روز یعنی هر شروع یک پایان دارند. اگر حامیانشان به هر دلیل سقوط کنند همونطور که نظام شوروی سقوط کرد دیدن رژیم دست نشاندهش در افغانستان، در اروپای شرقی، در شمال آفریقا، در امریکای مرکزی در عرض چند ماه ده ها کشور سقوط کرد، نزدیک به شاید 40-45-50 کشور. هر نظامی که وابسته به مردم خودش نباشه روز سقوطش فقط تاریخش مشخص نیست، حتمی است. به این لحاظ عرض میکنیم که اگر نظام هایی که مبتنی بر آرای مردم نباشد و با مردم تعامل نکند آماده سقوط باشد. من میخواستم بپرسم که تاثیر سقوط احتمالی پاکستان روی کشمیر هند یا در کل هندوستان و افغانستان و نظام سیاسی طالبان به چه میزان خواهد بود؟ این بخش ازشان بپرسیم.
We would like to know what would be the impact of the collapse of Pakistani regime in relation to Kashmir in India and Afghanistan. And I would also like to emphasize the fact that all puppet regimes have a very short life, as in the case of the Soviet puppet regime in Afghanistan. When the Soviet Union was collapsing within short time, the puppet regime in Afghanistan also collapsed. The same happened in Eastern Europe, in Northern Africa, in Central America. It's a domino factor, and every beginning has an end. As long as these regimes do not have any popular basis, they're not going to have a stable and long life. So what would be your comment about the situation of Pakistan and its collapse in relation to Afghanistan and India?
Well, I don't see any collapse of Pakistan. I don't see collapse of the regime. The difference is that Pakistan has a very resilient and robust and very strong state structure. And the problem with Afghanistan was that its state became the target of the Mujahideen. And all foreign actors played their role in destroying the Afghanistan state. If you have strong state, the governments come and go, and the state does not collapse. You know, you have to make a distinction between a regime change and the collapse of the country. We have very strong armed forces. We have very strong bureaucracy. We have very strong judiciary. So there are serious challenges that all these state institutions are facing in the present situation. I don't see any collapse. If it's going to be, this is a likelihood that there is, not economic collapse as such, but rather a default on making payment of foreign loans. The government says that IMF or no IMF, Pakistan is not going to default. So we have a very serious political crisis. And of course, the serious political crisis within the country does not mean that we don't have a government, that we don't have a very strong state. The policies regarding Afghanistan and India will be the same as have been. I don't see any change. So, but it is a hypothetical question that you are raising, that if Pakistani state collapses, so if Pakistani state collapses, when the state collapses, what happens? It's a civil war, and then there is a foreign intervention. So there are, that opens up all the vulnerabilities of the state and society.
نه خیر، دولت در پاکستان سقوط نمیکنه. حکومت ها، رژیم ها میاین و میرن، ولی پاکستان دارای یک دولت و نهادهای قوی مثل ارتش، بروکراسی و یک سیستم هست که او همچنان ماندگار باقی خواهد ماند. در ارتباط با دولتی که در افغانستان بود که مجاهدین به یک نحو باهو یک مواجهه یا تعامل داشتن، عامل مداخلات خارجی بسیار نقش مهم در تضعیف دولت‌ها در افغانستان داشته و همچی یک وضعیتی در پاکستان نیست. در پاکستان بله، ما بحران سیاسی جدی داریم. این بحران سیاسی در ارتباط با حکومت هم تاثیرگذار است، ولی دولت همچنان بر جای خودش پایدار است. بر مبنای همچی یک واقعیت، سیاست پاکستان در قبال افغانستان و هندوستان تغییر نخواهد کرد.
تشکر جناب استانیزی گرامی، تفسیر شما رو می‌خوایم ورود کنید.
Yeah, I agree with Professor رییس in the sense that the dissolution or fall of Pakistan might be a wishful thinking on the part of some, but it will not happen. But I look at it from a different angle. It's because, for one, Pakistan has become a military state where it's often believed that it's the army that drags a nation behind it rather than the other way around. Ever since the, I think, 1958, Malik Feroz Khan Noon and Iskandar Mirza, and then the coup that occurred, the Pakistani army has been working through a set of revolving doors, basically controlling the whole state apparatus. And it doesn't go back to the barracks, except it just sort of creates a camouflage to appear that way. And so because of that, Pakistan will not collapse because it's a strong military state. And there's a second factor, and that's because this military, Pakistan military, has offered itself to be a client to anyone who opposes India. So in the current circumstances, the Pakistani state is a client of the United States and China vis-a-vis India. And therefore, China will not allow it to collapse. The United States will not allow it to collapse, regardless of how bad its economy is, that it appears to be in shambles, but they will rescue it. The bad economy will affect the people, and the people are secondary. For superpower politics, for global interaction, people are always secondary, if at all. It's the state that matters. And since the state of Pakistan is a client state, again, in the context of a military, that drags a nation behind it, and it is used effectively by both the United States and China against Pakistan. Well, that it also has grudges with Afghanistan, that's, again, in the global politics, that doesn't rank as high as the Pakistani relationship with India. So that would be my take on it. That so in principle, I agree with Professor Ries that Pakistan will not collapse because it will not be allowed. That it does not have the backing of the people. The people of Pakistan have always been secondary, or at least since 1958, they have been secondary because the military does the bidding of the foreign powers, the superpowers, and the influence it has in Pakistani politics is tremendous. I think it's unequal anywhere in the world.
جناب رئیس صحبت کنم.
What would you say, Mr. Ries, to that?
Well, I think there is a issue of some nuances. I believe that Professor Saab has used some strong words. Pakistan is questionable. Is it a client state of the United States? We had 3 strategic partnerships with the United States, and all of them ended with differences. I'll give you one example. During American-led war against Afghanistan for 20 years, we were continuously blamed by the United States that we were, the Pakistani government and Pakistani state was supporting the Taliban, and do more, do more, do more. And if you go and talk to any policymaker in the United States, they are very upset with Pakistan. They are very angry. They are very disappointed. So perhaps we didn't do what is expected of client states. So we did not play the role of client states, ever, in any of the strategic partnerships. I can just give you an example that during the first Cold War, we established a relationship with China in 1963. And Pakistan International Airlines was the only airlines from non-communist states that was operating directly to Beijing. And all these Chinese diplomats and leaders used to fly through Karachi to the world. So that's not what the client states do. And then during war against the Soviet Union, we stayed focused on development of our nuclear capability. United States was not happy. And once the Soviets withdrew, Geneva Accords were signed, they told us, do you want our friendship, or do you want your nuclear weapons? So, and also you look at the events leading to August 1521, very humiliating departure of the United States. So Imran Khan could not get even a telephone call from President Biden. That is not what the client states are. About the military, role of military, I agree with you. It is not true that military has gone back. When you say revolving door, I agree with you that there have been democratic transitions, but those democratic transitions were very weak, and they could not take strong roots because of political conflict among the elites of Pakistan. We don't have any ideological problem today. It is intra-elite conflict, which is manifesting itself into the political crisis. Yes, military has a big role in Pakistani politics. In the present situation, it has a big role. And it is being resisted, it is being challenged by one party, and it is being supported by 13 other parties. So it is basically a question of elites. And then because of their fighting among themselves, one section of the elite is always willing to go and get a pat on the back from the security establishment. When these 13 parties were in the opposition, they were accusing Imran Khan to be the beneficiary of the support of the military establishment. Now they are in the same position, and Imran Khan is taking the same position that the PDM parties had taken when he was in power 1 year ago. So I think I've taken more time for you to translate.
بفرمایید آقای استانیزی سوالتون و جوابشون ترجمه کنیم. حالا خلاصش باشه.
I think we can do our analysis more profoundly if we link them to the events. You say that Pakistan established relationship with China. It was the first country, but you don't go into the reasons why it happened. It happened because in 1962, China and India had a border clash. And right after the border clash, Pakistan approached China because it had a common enemy in India. So again, the parity between Pakistan and India and China is not there. So the relationship would have to be one of having a common enemy in India, and two, in that relationship that they evolved was because of it, not because Pakistan as quote unquote an Islamic state had any other interest. The reference that you made to whether during the Soviet invasion, Pakistan helped Afghanistan in a selfless way, I would disagree in the sense that for Pakistan, Islam, or rather political Islam, is an existential identity. If Pakistan does not have Islam, it is India. So the religious identity is made into a national identity because it distinguishes it from India, and Pakistan in essence is nothing other than a non-India. So because of that fundamental ideological basis, Pakistan would not allow any resistance against the Soviet that was based on the national interest of Afghanistan, rather those that were based on quote-unquote Islamic. In Afghanistan, we had many political parties. The only political parties that became Islamic were the ones like Hizb Islami, Jamiat Islami, Ittihad Islami. All these Islamis were because a label of Pakistani political Islam was imposed on them, or because they had such tendencies, they were allowed to. So therefore, the whole resistance against the Soviet Union was coined in a certain way that served also Pakistan's interest. And that's the reason that every time there's a change of government in Afghanistan, and where Pakistan has to do something with it, the only people, the only parties, the only groups that Pakistan enables to take over in Afghanistan are the Islamist ones. The first time it was the Mujahideen, the second time it was the first Taliban government, and now we have the third one. Pakistan cannot afford to have a nationalistic or national-oriented party in Afghanistan. It has to be Islamic. And so now what most Afghans believe is that Pakistan is Islamizing Afghanistan in the context of a Devbandi ideology, which is very regressive, because it came from the time of the Shah Waliullah and his son Shah Abdulaziz at the time of the first mutiny of the British Raj, where Shah Abdulaziz said that the reasons that Muslims are losing in India is because they have abandoned Islamic education. And therefore, we are going to go for Islamic education and no other education. And now you listen to the Taliban today, they are advocating exactly the same thing. And when you look at the context of the social and political structure within Pakistan, it's run primarily by one or another Islamic or Islamist political party, whether it's the Jamaat Islami, whether it's the many of the Maulanas and many of the madrasas. So, like I said, because Islam for Pakistan is a political identity, that political identity is imposed on Afghanistan through the direct and indirect interferences that I give you the three examples, that every time a government is supported from Pakistan that comes into power in Afghanistan, it has to have the Devbandi brand of Islam, which is ideological rather than religious.
You want me to respond?
If you please.
Well, for 20 years, you had a democratic government in Afghanistan. And you had the support of the United States of America. They were fighting, they were losing lives, they were spending hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild your nation, rebuild your state. So what did you do? So why did, look at what Americans are talking about this whole episode. That why did they fail? Why the project of state and nation building in Afghanistan failed? So Pakistan is a collapsing state that you started to say, and that collapsing state, a client state, has forced one of the superpowers, Soviet Union, to withdraw from Afghanistan. And that same client state has forced the United States so humiliatingly withdraw from Afghanistan. I think you are giving too much credit to us we don't deserve. I think you look back at Afghanistan, the people of Afghanistan have paid the heaviest price. People who have been fighting and losing their lives. How many people have been killed by the United States in Afghanistan? Have you counted that? Please look into that. There is so much blood of the Afghans for their own country. Let us give credit to them, not to Pakistan. 20 years, and we had no problem with King Zahir Shah and even Dawood settled with Pakistan. We had no problem with communists. When you get Soviet Union, because of Afghanistan's policies, that they get into intelligence, they get into armed forces, they get into every vital element of the Afghan state. And then they are invited in to come to Afghanistan. I think Pakistan took a principled position. We opposed them, and the whole world knows. I think we did it in our own national interest. I agree with you. But Pakistan, a free, independent Pakistan cannot exist without a free and independent Afghanistan. See, look at the history and culture. I won't like to look at Afghanistan as our enemy or Pakistan as an enemy of Afghanistan. If some of the Afghans would like to see it that way, I will regret that, but I don't see that. I don't want to get into the detail of all that. You know, if you take that position, I respect your opinion that Pakistan is a client state and Pakistan became friend of China because we were hostile to India. These are very simple, old-fashioned propositions which really are not substantiated by historical facts. We would like to have very good relations with India. We have tried our best, and there have been periods in our history when we had very good relations with India. And I tell you one thing, that you will see one day, I don't know when that the day is going to be, when India and Pakistan will be friends. And look at Jinnah, the founder, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder. He left his house back there. He never thought that the two states are going to be the states that we have today. There are relations between the two. So you understand that who was one of the first foreign president who was the chief guest at the National Day of Afghanistan of India in 1955? It was Governor General Ghulam Ahmad of Pakistan, right? So the problem started only in 1964-65. Without understanding 1965, 64, 65, and I think the real reason is the problem within Pakistan. I take the blame for that. Could be better relations. So, you know, this question that, yes, Islam, if Islam was the reason for the creation of Pakistan, then why is it that there is a Bangladesh? Why is it that Bangladesh is not part of India? And why there are so many secessionist movements within India? So, understand the geopolitics of the creation of Pakistan. Had Muslims did not concentrated into two majorities in the northeast and the northwest, there couldn't be Pakistan. And without Pakistan, there couldn't be Bangladesh. We have two states, Muslim states. So, and of course, if Islam is, Islam is very close to us. Why should we be apologetic about Islam? Islam is our culture. It is our civilization. It is our religion. But I tell you, we don't have Islamic parties ruling in Pakistan. People of Pakistan have consistently rejected Jamaat Islami and Jamiyat Ulama Islam and all other parties. I guarantee you, if your modernist Afghan elites could settle among themselves on some framework, I don't think that this vacuum of the collapse of the state would have been filled up by the Taliban. So, if again, I don't want to get into the argument, but I think let's not debate history. I thought that we would be interested to talk about. You would like me to tell you what is happening in Pakistan, very frankly. We have a very serious political crisis, right? So it is very serious. I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow.
I think Allama Iqbal answers that question. I wish Pakistan was mainly spreading the message of Allama Iqbal and Abu al-Ala Maududi in Afghanistan rather than sending tanks and terrorists and suicide bombers, that even the head of ISI was approving those operations the other nights in the interview which we had with him. Anyway, the answer of Allama Iqbal to your comment is that sometimes we have some Muslims that were not observing Islam, and he called them Musalman Zada. So he is born in a Muslim family. In a very beautiful poem, he says, ادب پیرایه نادان و داناست خوشان کو که از ادب خود را بیاراست ندارم آن مسلمان زاده را دوست که در دانش فزود و از ادب کاست. Manners, ethics is the beauty of an educated and ignorant person, and good on anybody who beautifies himself with good manners. I don't love a person who is born in a Muslim family whose knowledge is more than his ethics, his education is more than his manners. It looks like in the case of Pakistan, the body of the society is Muslim, but the head, the political leaders, the military leaders are, as Western observers puts it, brown in color and British in mentality. And one of the problem, unfortunately, in Indian subcontinent is inferiority complex in relation to British Raj, which still exists. And still a lot of Pakistani elites are feeling and suffering from that problem. So that's why when we say that Pakistan was trying to Islamize Afghanistan, we need to be very careful, because it's not a really purely Islamic Islamization. It is very political. It's very strategic for the benefits of America and some other international players, including military junta, who doesn't have an Islamic agenda, like Mr. Asad Nadir, Mr. Asad Durrani, the head of former ISI, who publicly approved and admired General Kamal Mustafa Ataturk. How do you justify this contradiction? That in a country which is called Islamic Republic of Pakistan, please keep in mind, Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Yes.
And the people are Muslims. And Imran Khan, who was a very fully fledged westernized gentleman, he came back to Islam. He realized the depth and the comprehensiveness of Islam, contrary to some of our westernized elites who are suffering from inferiority complex, and they are forgetting about their Islamic legacy and values. As in the case of Imran Khan, he himself said that I am deeply influenced by Allama Iqbal and Dr. Ali Shariati. Anyway, this gentleman comes back to Islam, but in the ISI, the head of ISI says that I admire Mustafa Kamal Ataturk. How this contradiction is answered, this is one question. The other question is, according to one school of thought, or according to some observers, Nasirullah Babur was belonging to Ahmad Qadiani group, who was the head of, department in relation to Afghanistan, and especially the father of Gulbuddin Hekmatyar and Taliban. How come such a person, with all its commitments to foreigners, he is heading a very radical extremist Islamic group?
So, I think it is better for you to ask these questions to the persons that you have referred to. If you have any question for me, I will be very glad to answer your question. But you have a very long list of issues that on your mind, and I'm unable to answer all those issues that you have in your mind. So if there is any question about Afghanistan or Pakistan, I'm willing to answer. But I want to know, what is the question? I agree with you. You are very enlightened view of the things. I congratulate you on your enlightened views. But what is it that I can add to help you understand Pakistan better?
My question was, how come the head of ISI is admiring Kemal Atatürk, who was a secularist anti-Islam element, and in the meantime, this country is called Islamic Republic, and they are supporting militia groups and extremist parties like Gulbuddin and Taliban?
Well, you know, there are too many things. General is
Asad Durrani.
we have met several times. You know, people have independent opinions in Pakistan. Look at media, look at newspapers, look at intellectual streams in Pakistan. There are all kind of people, and although we feel today that situation is of freedom of press or freedom of expression is not as good as we would like to have it, but we don't have such freedom of expression in any of the Muslim countries as we have in Pakistan. So if General Durrani has an opinion, that opinion is not of the state of Pakistan. And I don't think that he gave that interview when he was head of the ISI. And he himself has been in trouble for some of his views as well. Pakistan is, if you ask my opinion about Pakistan, I've done 2 books on this. One is Imagining Pakistan, Modernism, State, and Politics of Islamic Revival. That came from Lexington Books, and I think it was 2017. So what is the argument? Argument is that Pakistan is primarily a project of the modernist Muslims. It is not a Deobandi project, as you're trying to make it. When let me explain this point. When 1857 happened, a Mughal Sultanate ended in India. Muslims were in crisis. The Muslims who had ruled for 700-800 years. We own the Afghans rulers. We own Mahmud Ghazni. We own Sher Shah Suri. We own the rulers of Farghana Valley, Babur, Akbar, and the Mughal dynasty, and also the Turks who came to rule us. So the issue was that what happened to the Muslim rule? There were 2 paths. Deoband established a madrasa at Deoband, these ulama, that, the problem is that we have lost Islam, an Islamic revivalist movement that has, that you see the reflection in the Taliban and also Talibanization in Pakistan and TTP and all those. There was another path that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan took. In 1857, afterwards. So the first thing he did was he founded a Muslim Scientific Society. The Muslim Scientific Society would translate scientific journals from foreign countries into Urdu. That Muslims must learn science and technology, and he established Aligarh University. Pakistan is a product of Aligarh, Islamia College Peshawar, that decorates our currency notes, Anjuman Himayat-e-Islam. So all modern colleges, schools, and universities that were established, this is what created Pakistan and sense of nationalism, not Deoband. Deoband opposed the creation of Pakistan. They were with Khuda Khidmatgar. They were with Ghaffar Khan. They were with Congress Party. It is history. Sir, this is what I can say. So in Muslim modernism means what? That we must have roots in our Islamic civilization. But rationalism, scientific thinking, economic progress. And everything that we do necessarily in modernity does not come into conflict with Islam or Islamic Sharia. So Deoband is not what defines Pakistan. It is Aligarh that defines Pakistan.
Of course, I didn't say that Deoband has a major role in the creation of Pakistan, but in the meantime, please keep in mind that Islam itself requires and makes it obligatory to be rational and logical. As a matter of fact, the prophets have come to promote wisdom in mankind. So modernity is something that, yes, we might appreciate and also have a critical view about it. But when we say Islam, it is so comprehensive that it also encompasses wisdom and the right and moral modernity and so many other values which are partially adopted in Western and non-Western civilizations. The problem is sometimes this balance is disrupted and we are more influenced, especially in politics and military fields, with foreign ideologies at the cost of sacrificing our own values and legacy and giving priority to these values which are not very much local and compatible with our morals. But of course, this is a very debated issue. Let's give the chance to Mr. ضرابی if he has any question. Again, we will partially translate it in Persian from this moment.
جناب آقای حسینی، خلاصه آن چیزی که رد و بدل شد در پایان شما یک یادداشت داشته باشید. من فقط یک سوال مشترک از جناب رئیس و جناب استانیزی دارم. من میخوایم بپرسم که القاهای وصل دو ملت همسایه و القاهای فصل دو ملت همسایه را در چه عناصر میبینن؟ اگر کوتاه ابتدا جناب استانیزی پاسخ بدن، بعد جناب رئیس.
Would you please answer? ببخشید سوال
شما ترجمه بکنیم سوال بعد جناب استانیزی پاسخ میدن.
شما جوابتون ترجمه کنین استاد.
شما به زبان انگلیسی صحبت کنید جناب استانیزی، پاسخ شما.
Well, let me answer both the issues that Mr. ضرابی raised and the ones that Mr. رییس, Professor رییس raised earlier. I think when we go to the colonial times, there were two divergent movements that we can call Islamic. The one that was regressive, Devbandi, those were the ones that the British allowed. The ones that were progressive, like Sayyid Ahmad Khan and like Sayyid Jamaluddin Afghani and many of the others, those were the ones that the British opposed. Now, when we are talking about it in the context of Pakistan, Pakistan accepts the progressive Islam for themselves. It's the regressive that they then export to Afghanistan. The Islamists that have been exported to Afghanistan, whether it was through the party of the Mujahideen, whether it was through the first round of the Taliban or the second round of the Taliban, these are all made in Pakistan. So in that respect, they are Devbandi. So yes, if we can consider that the regressive and progressive Islam was different and Pakistan was a cradle for nurturing both of these in a way, they did nurture the regressive, the backward for Afghanistan and exported them in the form of one or another government. The three governments that have taken power in Afghanistan with the blessings of Pakistan were all Devbandi, if not outrightly, generally in attitude. But I think to answer the question, the issue that you raised earlier, that whether we should give credit to the Afghans who died in the hundreds of thousands and nearly 2 million, or should we give it credit to Pakistan? Yes, the people of Afghanistan paid the price. There is no denying that. The people of Afghanistan paid the price, but it was Pakistan that reaped the benefit. They reap the benefits because all the aid and assistance, military and otherwise, that came for the Afghan freedom fighters was channeled through Pakistan. It was the Pakistanis who took the pick of choosing the best weapons for themselves and giving the old ones to the Mujahideen to fight with. So there was a clear degree of the exploitation of the crisis, and that cannot be denied. The issue you referred to as to whether the United States brought a democracy to Afghanistan, I think it should be correctly defined as a democracy / kleptocracy. The Americans wanted to use the warlords that the Taliban had displaced, brought them to the forefront, and said, okay, go ahead, you do the bloodshed, and we will follow. And when they brought the warlords, it turned Afghanistan into many fiefdoms. And that's why the central government under Karzai and Ghani had trouble really centralizing or implementing the policies of a centralized government, because the Americans were to the very end supporting all the kleptocrats, they were supporting all the warlords, and they were financing them, and they were on their payroll. I have an article in the Huffington Post that gives even the amount of salary that each one of these warlords were given. We had in America the Foreign Secretary, the State Department, John Kerry, who in a sense went against the grain of the very constitutional precedent of the United States, where in 1802, the United States decided that elections should not be based on the first and the second runner, but rather on a ticket. He reversed that for Afghanistan and created a government where Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah were of opposing parties, and he tried to create a post for them, which was a government in paralysis. Whatever one said, the other opposed. And he knew that. And so therefore, the government was made dysfunctional. So for Americans, it wasn't, again, the interests of the people of Afghanistan were not their priority. Their strategic aim was. And the reason that they left was simply the arrogant and totally irresponsible and unthinkable bragging of Trump, who simply wanted to do an election positioning and say, look, I'm getting rid of all these wars and I'm bringing the soldiers back home, without even thinking of the consequences. That's why the Secretary of Defense in the United States resigned, because this was so nonsensical, to use a simpler word, but the one that I would prefer, I would not use that. So therefore, the United States failed in a sense because they wanted to play the chessboard on the Ukrainian front and wanted to close this side, which was its vulnerability. But to go back to the issue of Pakistan, that yes, I agree that one of the reasons I think that Mr. Husseini is also referring to is that we are not making a distinction between a political Islam and Islam as a religion. And as a religion, we are all Muslims. There is no question about that. That's not even debatable. That's not anyone's business. We believe in God, and that's our business. That's our relationship with God. That's why we believe in Sirat al-Mustaqim, direct connection between human and God, and nothing and no one in between. However, political Islam is a different thing. And that has been manipulated and used by both corrupt governments in the Muslim world, because religion is easily exploitable. Because it's easily exploitable. The minute, like for instance, right now in Afghanistan, the minute the Taliban says that we are establishing an Islamic Emirate, okay? People are supposed to surrender and not raise a question. But most people don't know that nowhere and not anywhere in the Quran, there's not even a single ayah that allows for political sovereignty. Quran forbids it. It is not in our tradition. It's not in our Sunnah. The Prophet did not establish theocracy. The Khulafai Rashidin did not establish theocracy. Theocracy was a Christian thing of the Europeans, but now it's sold to us with a new label, Islamic this and Islamic that, and people buy to it. And that's the unfortunate part. And I think Pakistan is marketing this brand of Islamism in a nice way. And as you said, you're right. The Islamic parties that come to power or have a hand in Pakistani politics behind the scene, they are much more moderate than the version they sent to us, to Afghanistan, which are very, very extreme, not only by Pakistani standards, but even by Afghan standards. I better stop here. Thank you.
جناب حسینی بپرسیم مهمان ما خسته نشدن.
Yes, sir. I hope you're not tired. And Mr. ضرابی made the following question. Would you please tell us what are the elements, what are the factors to unite the two nations of Pakistan and Iran? And the same question is also addressed to Mr. Estanizi.
I think
Sorry, I think you meant Pakistan and Afghanistan. I think you mistakenly said Iran.
No, not Pakistan and Afghanistan. Yes, sorry, my apologies. Yeah.
The issue is that look at Afghanistan today, for instance. How much support it is getting from the United States? How much support it is getting from European Union? How much support is it getting from India? If there is any support, it is coming from Pakistan. I have lived in the places where you live. But against all temptations, I live in Pakistan. We know that what kind of situation we face in Afghanistan and Pakistan. My plea to all of you is, you have more responsibility than we living in Afghanistan and Pakistan to bring these two countries together. What I sense from your comments is that you seem to be angry with Pakistan and Pakistani regime and state and military and everything. I can request only that try to see history from all dimensions, from all angles. I don't think that you are wrong, not at all. You have a particular angle which many of us have, but then we have to ask, is that helpful? You just stand on the border between these two countries and see how much food items are going to Afghanistan. These food items, which basically the livelihood of the people, they don't come from far off places. They come from Afghanistan to Pakistan, vegetables sometimes, fruits, melons, grapes. But then we have grains, we have sugar, we have animals. Every time I drive on motorway, there are trucks and trucks and lines continuously going through Zaman and going through Torkham. So our societies, our people, our culture, our languages, everything has been integrated for a very long time, for centuries. So what can bring together, it is very difficult, but I think we have to have forums, we have to have ideas, we have to have empathy. empathy. We have to understand Afghanistan, within its own conditions. You have to understand our difficulties in the context of what we are. It is not really helpful, my dear brothers, to say things we are exporting terrorists to Afghanistan. When people in Pakistan say that TTP has safe havens in Afghanistan, they are killing our soldiers, our civilians, our children. Not everybody would say that, although we know that that is the case. Because getting into fight does not really help. We understand why they are there. They are Deobandis. Taliban are Deobandis. So, I beg for empathy that, yes, our state provided sanctuaries to the Taliban. Should have, shouldn't have. And whether without those who were fighting inside Afghanistan, this Quetta Shora was the only determining factor, I'm not sure about that. So I think empathy, integration, economic integration. I am of the view that those Afghans who have been born in Pakistan have been living now for third generation since 1980. They should be given citizenship. I have written in one of my columns. There are many things can be done, but there are many things that we can do to prevent obstacles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
حمایت هایی که به افغانستان سرازیر میشه در قسمت های مختلف از جمله مواد غذایی از پاکستان به افغانستان سرازیر میشه و افغانستان و پاکستان روابط چندین قرنه دارند. ما دارای اهداف و افکار مشترک در بسا زمینه ها هستیم و این درست نیست که گفته شود که از پاکستان و افغانستان تروریست ها صادر میشن. ما باید یک دید کلی داشته باشیم و شما هم بر خطا نیستیم و درک میکنیم که شما از یک زاویه بخصوص به قضیه نگاه میکنید، ولی او سخنها نه تنها مفید نیست بلکه مضر است و باید کار کنیم و گپ بزنیم که مفید باشه، کمک کننده باشه. ما اگرچه که از طریق تحریک طالبان پاکستان TTP مورد حمله قرار میگیریم، ولی خب بتونم بگیم که حتما کلیت افغانستان در این مسئله دخیل است. خب چرا اونا توسط افغانستان به نحو حمایت میشن یا در او سرزمین رابطه‌ای دارن؟ به خاطر از است که اینا و طالبان اردو متعلق به مکتب دیوبندی هستند. این نقطه مشترک اونا را با هم دیگر نزدیک ساخته. ما بارها وقتی که رانندگی کردیم شاهد یک سلسله از کامیون های بسیار زیادی بودیم که اونا مواد مثلا غذایی را یا چیزای دیگه را به افغانستان انتقال میتن که خودش نشان دهنده یک رابطه است و یک توجه حمایت است که پاکستان داره به افغانستان. در زمینه که چگونه میتونیم که ما بین دو کشور پاکستان و افغانستان یک اتصال و پیوند ایجاد کنیم، یک مسئله عامل همدردی است، خود را در جای یکدیگر قرار دادن است که موقف یکدیگر را درک کنیم، همدردی داشته باشیم. خب از افغانستان و پاکستان میوه میآید، انگور میآید یا برعکس، و ما بارها در ارتباط با این موضوع که به افغان‌هایی که در پاکستان زندگی میکنن تابعیت داده شود مقاله نوشته کردیم و yes sir you have written in regards to offering citizenship to the Afghans living in Pakistan. That's what you said?
Yes, those who are born in Pakistan.
Okay. اونایی که thank you کسان افغان‌هایی که در پاکستان تولد شده من طرفدار عزیزتم و در مقالات خودم ایره نوشته کردیم که برای اونا تابعیت داده شود و بنابراین این همدردی بسیار گپ مهم است. این مسئله مهم است که ما دارای یک سلسله آرا و عقاید مشترکی بودیم، روابط چندین قرنه. اینا میتونه که حلقه های اتصال تقویت کنه.
تشکر جناب استانیزی گرامی. شما پاسخ جناب رئیس دارید؟
بله. I think that we can look at this at two levels. One, that if you're thinking at the people level, that's a different issue. I agree with you on all of that. Afghans don't feel foreign in Pakistan, partly because just think about it. Peshawar was a capital of Afghanistan, so we don't look at it in any different way. Peshawar was the winter capital of Timur Shah. So just if you do, comparatively speaking, remember when Berlin was under the Soviet occupation, the first thing after the reunification did was that they moved the capital from Bonn to Berlin. So it is significant to us in that sense. In terms of people, yes, we feel that. But what the hypocrisy of the government of Pakistan that comes in is that anytime there is a movement toward peace, that is what is suppressed. So, for instance, the Christian world has Martin Luther King, and the Buddhists have Dalai Lama. The Muslims had Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, who was an advocate of peace throughout the world. Yet this man spent more of his life in Pakistani jail than he did in the British jails. When you look at the present situation, we have a peace movement by Mansour Pashtun. He is the one who is disenfranchised, and rather it's these extremist fanatics that the Pakistani government supports. And we know that even people like Mullah Baradar, for instance, he was in the custody of Pakistan because they wanted to hold him, to keep him away from entering any kind of negotiations which did not have the endorsement of Pakistan. So therefore, there is that part of it that there is should I call it a hypocrisy or a double standard? Is that yes, when you export to us, it's the extremist, but those who want peace, even in Pakistan, they are not supported. Now, when it comes to now in overall context, should Afghanistan, Pakistan, and say Iran, should they have peace? Should they have cooperation? Of course they should. But then look at it again. 1958. One of the most intelligent and best educated prime ministers that Pakistan had was Malik Feroz Khan Noon. And the minute he announced that he was willing to resolve the Kashmir problems and that he was willing to resolve the Pashtunistan problem with Afghanistan, what happened to him? He was deposed overnight. So any attempt that is made for peace, unfortunately, and this was not only there, I think it was the whole context that at the time when Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan wanted to have a confederation, possibly with Iraq and Turkey, the Baghdad Pact started in 1955, and then there were a number of coups. And these happened not coincidentally. The first one happened in Muhammad Mossadegh's fall in Iran, and within 20 days, Shah Mahmud's government in Afghanistan fell. Within 20 days. That is 1953 for you. Then we go to 1958. Within a few days after, Karim Qasim took over in Iraq, within a few weeks, Feroz Khanun and Iskandar Mirza were overthrown. And in all of these cases, civilian governments, governments that had bases in the people were overthrown. Militarist governments were brought in because they were they could serve the interests of the foreign powers very easily. So the confederation that Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan could have had was replaced with the CENTO Pact. And Pakistan jumped in head on, and to this day, it's stuck in it. And so if it hadn't been for the withdrawal of Iran in 1979, Pakistan would not have even withdrawn from it. So we have to separate two levels. At the level of people, these borders are artificial. Ignore them. We are all one humanity. And I would love to embrace a Pakistani as much as I would embrace an Iranian, as I would embrace an Afghan. Makes no difference for me. I love them all. That's the people level. But when it comes to the government level, these governments, because of the global politics, they cannot be pivotal in any decision. They have to play the game of someone else. They have to play the role that's written for them. And that's why the Cold War might have ended for Europe, but it is still going on in here, because our governments are either in a disarray as they are in Afghanistan, or they're in a client state mode as they are in Pakistan, or they're under a kind of religious despotism as they are in Iran. So despotism is what crushes the wishes and the wills of the people of all three countries, whether it's in the name of the military, in the name of Sunni Islam, or in the name of Shia Islam. God has created us as free and as dignified. وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. God has given dignity to the progeny of Adam. And it's this progeny of Adam that is trampled on, if not elsewhere, certainly in this area, by the various regimes. I don't care what brand they wear. I don't care what flag they raise. What I know is that the people are suppressed and depressed, and unfortunately, in the name of their own religion. Thank you.
تشکر. کم کم به پایان برنامه نزدیک میشیم. جناب آقای حسینی، یک خلاصه از این گفتمان شما به هموطنان از ما تشریح کنیم. بعد در پایان پیام آقای رئیس خواهیم گرفت.
بله، من از خود جناب استاد خواهش میکنم که صحبت خود نظرشان به فارسی بگوین، اونطور رساتر هستن. بفرمایید.
خب منظورم است که ما این مشکل میتونیم در دو سطح بررسی کنیم. یکی در سطح مردمی است، یکی در سطح تشکیلات سیاسی حکومت هاست. در سطح مردمی این سرحداتی که اینجاست یا در هر جای دنیاست، اینها مصنوعی هستند. ما همه انسان هستیم، ما همه بشر هستیم، ما مخلوق خداوند هستیم، ما همه با هم ارتباط داریم. بنان اگر مردم را بگذارن مشکل نیست. ما به اون سبب اشاره کردم در پاکستان چند دفعه که کوشش شد برای که، یا در منطقه به صورت عموم در سال 1953 1958 کوشش هایی که برای تشکیل یک کنفدراسیون بزرگ منطقوی متشکل از پاکستان، ایران و افغانستان بود و در اونجا فیروز خان نون یکی از با تعلیم یافته ترین صدراعظمان پاکستان پیشنهاد کرد که ما حاضر هستیم که هم مشکل کشمیر را حل کنیم و هم مشکل پشتونستان را حل کنیم با ایجاد این نوع یک کنفدراسیون. به بسیار سرعت را از بین بردن و همین کوشش هایی که این منطقه بود برای که اروپایی ها، منظورم امریکا و روسیه است، اونها منظور من از نگاه فرهنگ اروپایی منظور بود، اونها طرفدار از این نبودن که کنفدراسیون کشورهای اسلامی که جامعه اسلامی را با هم متحد بسازن ایجاد شود. بنان او کنفدراسیون فیروز خان نون از بین بردن، برای وضعش پیمان بغداد ایجاد کردن بعدش پیمان سنتو ایجاد شد که همین ممالک گرفتن در دام شرق و غرب انداختن. البته وقتی که ممالک میگم منظورم از حکومت‌هایش است. بنان حکومت‌هایی که در اینجا ایجاد شده در گرو کشورهای بزرگ قرار گرفت، مردم در حاشیه قرار گرفت، منافع مردم را صرف به خاطر از اینکه از او بهره برداری سیاسی کنن، متاسفانه در هر سه کشور یا به نام استبداد دینی سنی در افغانستان، استبداد دینی شیعه در ایران، یا هم به نام اسلام خاص از طرف نظامیان در پاکستان. بنان حکومت‌های این سه کشور هیچ کدامش نمایندگی واقعی از مردم نمی‌کنند. بنان مردم هنوزم تاوان و جبران خساره از این را میپردازن. مردم افغانستان است که میبرن و تا حد مردم پاکستان است که میبرن، مردم ایران است که بعضیشان به او حالت است. بنان متاسفانه ما قربانی یک دسیسه شدیم که در اونجا هم دین به مقابل مردم استعمال میکنن، هم سیاست بر مقابل مردم استعمال میکنن و هم نظامی عسکری را به ضد مردم استعمال میکنن. بنان جای تاسف در اینجاست که ما این مسائل با هم مدغم میپیچیم و تحلیل میکنیم و مثلا در افغانستان مردم خوش هستند که در پاکستان وضع ناقراری و اغتشاش است، ولی اونجا مردم قربانی میتن. اونهایی که در رأس قدرت هستند جا به جا هستند، به اونها را به اصطلاح وطنی ما شما اونها را هیچ بلای نمیزنند. قربانی را که میته مردم پاکستان میته، نه زمامدارش. قربانی را که میته مردم افغانستان میته، نه طالبایش. قربانی را که میته مردم ایران میته، نه استبداد مذهبیشان. بنان مشکل عمده در همین قسمت است که ایجاب بحث بیشتر میکنه و به همین جهت.
تشکر. من یک دو نکته از صحبت‌های جناب رئیس و جناب شما دریافت کردم که بسیار حائز اهمیت است. جناب رئیس فرمودن که در سیاست‌گذاری‌ها بعضی وقتا ما خود به جای هم بگذاریم. وقتی به اونطوری به هم نگاه بکنیم باز درک میکنیم که چرا چنین سیاست اتخاذ شدن. یا در واقع یک تحلیل واقع بینانه داریم. همیشه از نگاه خود یا از لنز تحقیقی خود به قضایا نگاه نکنیم، ببینیم طرف مقابل ما راجع به ما چی فکر میکنم. اگر ما بتونیم فکر رو بخوانیم بهتر میتونیم از روی گفتگو یا گفتمان مسائل به هم نزدیک بکنیم و یا اختلافات و نزاع را بعد در حل برسانیم. اما در ارتباط با فرمایش شما جناب استانیزی، اگرچه که شما اشاره کردیم که سیاسیون باید گفتگو یا گفتمان داشته باشند، خب طبیعی است که سیاست ها متأثر از تأثیر اجرایی یا قهری و اقتصادی قدرت‌های مسلط جهان است. پیشنهاد من در ابتدایی بود که چرا دانشمندان کشورها به لحاظ فرهنگی با هم نزدیک نشن تا بتوانند تفکر فرهنگی و سیاسی خود در هم مدغم بکنن که تأثیر بگذارن بر حکومت‌هایشان. اون گفتگوی تمدن‌هایی که آقای خاتمی در مقطع ریاست جمهوریش پیشنهاد کرده بود که بسیار پیشنهاد نیکی بود در کشورهای منطقه علاوه خصوص و در جهان غرب با مسلمانان و سایر فرق دینی یا فرهنگی به هر ترتیبه. و این میزگرد یا میزگردهای این چنینی میتواند کم کم ما را منتج به این بسازد که بتوانیم با شناخت بیشتر از هم بتوانیم یک سیاست‌های انسانی، ملی و میهنی و همسایه‌داری و منطقه‌ای را اتخاذ کنیم. در صورت من تشکر میکنم از جناب آقای حسینی. میخوایم
به اجازه تان یک توضیح بسیار بسیار کوچک. ما چیزی را که فراموش کردم در ترجمه ای بود که مثلا در پاکستان اونهایی که از راه صلح میخواین مشکل حل کنن اونها را در زندان میندازن. خان عبدالغفار خان بیشترین عمر خود در زندان تیر کرد. حالا که ما اونجا جنبش پشتین داریم، مسعود پشتین، که بازم میخواین از راه صلح حل کنن، اونها را یا نادیده میگیرن یا بالایشان حمله میکنن. اما اونایی که از راه شدت پیش میره اونها را هم اسلحه میتن، هم تقویه میکنه و هم صادر میکنه به سرزمین ما. تشکر.
طبیعی است. جناب استانیزی، من به یاد دارم در یک کتاب شاید 30 سال پیش خوانده بودم، زمانی که دکترین مقابله با اتحاد شرق یا بلوک شرق در امریکا اتخاذ موضع میکرد. خب طبیعی بود که اینا تسلیحاتشون باید بیشتر میکردن در مقابل شوروی اون زمان. حالا موشک‌های اتمی بود، کشتی‌ها بود، نیروهای نظامی بود، بودجه بود، همه و همه. ولی اینا به این نتیجه رسیدن که این کافی نیست. ما باید تفکر نیروی سیاسی اتحاد جماهیر شوروی را بهش نزدیک شویم. اینا چی اصلا فکر میکنن؟ چون یک نظام بسته بود. اینا جاسوسایی را با حربی تاجر و یا دیپلماتایی را جاسوسی را به هر شکل وارد این سیستم کردن تا نزدیک شدن. بعد از مرگ برژنف و اندروپوف و چرنیکوف و گورباچوف جوان تانستن بهش نزدیک شدن. وقتی که گفتن شما چقدر از انگلیس قرضدار هستی و یا از غرب قرضداری یا از امریکا یا از آفریقا، اونا متوجه شدن که هر چی ما در میاریم باید خرج اروپای شرقی بکنیم، خرج امریکای مرکزی بکنیم، خرج آلمان شرق بکنیم، اقمار خود بکنیم. اروپای پس از جنگ دوم به کجا رسید و ما در کجا ماندیم؟ و اونا با یک رفرم در یک پروستریکا و در یک گلاسنوف دیدن که بدونی که یک قطره خون از دیدی کس بریزه بجز چند نفر کشته که در آذربایجان بود، اونا تانستن یک کشور اتمی را مهار بکنن. یعنی تفکر نیروی سیاسی شوروی را اونا بهش نزدیک شدن و تانستن خنثی بکنن مقابله سنگین اتمی را. در عرض ما است که ما اگر تفکر سیاسی غالب بر یک کشور، مخصوصا همسایه‌ای که با هم نزاع داریم، بهشان نزدیک شویم، ما میتونیم از راه‌های گفتگو و گفتمان کم کم به حداقل برسانیم. نه اینکه بخوایم غلبه بکنیم، هیچ نیاز نیست. اونا همسایه ماست، حق دارن، حقوق دارن، ما هم. عرض ما است. در صورت تشکر. من جناب آقای حسینی میخوایم که از جناب مهمان محترم ما یک پیام پایانی بگیرن و احتمالاً یک تبصره هم دارن. برنامه را با اجازه شما ختم.
ما یک تبصره مختصر را که میکنم ضمن تقدیر صحبت‌های جناب استاد استانیزی در اکثریت موارد. فقط این را میخوایم که عرض کنم که ببینید در ایران جمهوری اسلامی یک پایگاه مردمی داره که دوام آورده با تمامی تضادهای جامعه جهانی و قول مجله تایم که جهان در برابر امریکا ایران و حتی در انقلاب هم تا آخرین لحظات مجاهدین خلق اصرار میکردند که مبارزه مسلحانه بر علیه شاه اعلام شود. امام خمینی اعلام مبارزه مسلحانه نکرد. اینا با روش‌های بسیار مسالمت آمیز تظاهرات چند میلیونی به قدرت رسیدند و در مراسم خاکسپاریشان 10 میلیون نفر شرکت کرد و از همین حوادث اخیر جان سالم به در برد. بنابراین در عین حالی که یک مشت آهنین در اینجا حاکم است، اما این مشت آهنین توسط حکما و علما و دانشمندایی که نه مثل ملا عمر یک ظهور و بروز خلق الساحه و سمانه ندارن، بلکه 50-60 سال پیش اینا کتاب نوشته کردن، ترجمه کردن. از جمله فرزند علامه اقبال وقتی که سخنرانی آقای خامنه ای را در ارتباط با علامه اقبال در تهران شنید، دکتر جاوید فرزند علامه اقبال گفت که اگر تمامی رؤسای جمهوری کشورهای مسلمان شناخت را که آقای خامنه ای از پدر می‌داره، از افکار و آثار و اشعارش می‌داشتند، جهان اسلام به این حالت عقب ماندگی نمی‌ماند. کما اینکه امروز ایران از جهات علمی بسیار پیشرفته است، امنیت و تاثیرگذاریش. بنابراین درست است که در اونجا بسیار محدودیت های است، ولی در عین حال بسیار یعنی آزادی های هم هست و او تعبیر استبداد مذهبی بسیار یک تعبیر دقیقی نیست. حالا فرصتش نیست، در اون مورد ما زیاد نمیخوایم، باز اگه وقت دیگر خواست استاد در خدمت هستم، چون من در قسمت این موضوع یه خورده یک اندازه دقت بیشتر کردیم. از استرالیا برای 8 سال فقط رفتم که یک قسمت هدف ما بود که بتونیم که یک شناخت عمیق‌تر نسبت به همین جریانات کشور پیدا کنیم که نقش تاثیرگذاری در قبال همین قضایا داره. و اما آخرین گپ، yes Mr. رییس sorry for keeping you in isolation. We would like you to tell us the last message that you have for us, and if you have any more comment, please be kind enough and make it.
I think I have spoken enough, and I feel quite educated about Pakistan and also about Afghanistan-Pakistan relations. I hope that we continue this conversation and think of the good of people of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and security and peace. I feel that everybody has his or her own interpretation of history and reflections on what has been the history of the region. But I think if we have more opportunities to meet and talk, which is very rare between Afghanistan and Pakistani intellectuals, I hope that we will have a much better understanding of one another's country, history, politics, and society and people. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your presence in this interview, and we are looking forward to see you again in these kinds of interviews.
Thank you very much.
تشکر. امیدوارم خسته نشده باشم. سپاسگزاریم از جناب پروفسور زمان استانیزی و جناب پروفسور رسول بخش رئیس و همچنین همکاری جناب شما جناب احمد و حسینی. اگر جناب پروفسور استانیزی در حد یک نیم دقیقه صحبت دارم، من نمیخوایم مانع شم.
تشکر. منظورم است که ما اگر فرصت باشه بسیار خوشی میخوایم روی از این مسئله استبداد دینی صحبت کنیم. این که در درجه سطح استبداد تفاوت است او را انکار نمی کنیم، ولی باز هم هر چیزی که به نام اسلام تحمیل شود چون صریحاً مخالف امر قرآن است، به او سبب چیزی را که گفتم منظور می بود. ولی افغانستان و ایران و پاکستان تنها نیستند، بسیاری کشورهای دیگه هم از همین مشکل رنج میبرند که در بسیاری اینها شور بخوری که یک حکومت اسلامی و یک جمهوریت اسلامی و امارت اسلامی میان، یعنی نام اسلام اینها انقدر بد کردن که نه تنها که در رفتار و کردارشان چیز اسلامی نیست بلکه در شعارشان هم. منظور من است که اسلام مقام از خود داره و او رابطه خدا و انسان ما باید در بسیار مقام بلند نگه داریم، احترام بگذاریم، از او سوء استفاده سیاسی نکنیم، بهره برداری سیاسی نکنیم. همه حکومت‌های فعلی امی کار میکنن، هر کس به نحو خود. یک کمی ممکن یک با ظرافت‌ها و نزاکت‌های متفاوت‌تر باشه، ولی استفاده باز هم استفاده است. به او سبب دین و دولت در تاریخ جامعه اسلامی با هم هیچ وقت مدغم نشدن، به استثنای 4 مورد که البته جایش نیست سر از او صحبت کنیم. بنان منظورم است که مسلمان ها جدایی دین و دولت را مروج ساختند از روی سنت حضرت رسول اکرم. بنان موضع‌گیری من در مقابل دین نیست. من میخوایم دین در جای خودش احترام بگذارم، سیاست در جای خود. سیاست از خود پلیدی های داره که نباید دین را درو بکشانیم. بنابراین امیدوار هستم که در آینده فرصت های باشه که روی از این مسائل عمیقانه صحبت کنیم.
استاد یک سوال از جناب عالی. وقتی میگیم که سیاست پلیدی است یعنی دین پاکی است، نه؟ درست است؟ درسته؟ خب اردوگاه پلیدی که اردوگاه پاکی را در امان نمیگذاره و به صورت طبیعی در بین از اینا تقابل و رویارویی به وجود میاد. شما نمیتونید که آتش بس یک طرفه اعلان کنید. این توجیه ای را چگونه پاسخ میتین که این تقابل ذاتی بین پلیدی و پاکی اجتناب ناپذیر است؟
نه لزوما تقابل نیست. مثلا خلیفه عباسی وقتی که از امام حنیفه، مقصد ما ابو حنیفه چی است، امامت شیعی منظور من است، از اونا خواستن که بیان که من شما را به حیث قاضی القضات تمام خلافت عباسی مقرر کنم. چرا اونا نپذیرفتن؟ برای اینکه گفتن اگر چنین شود ما در خدمت دین، در خدمت سیاست، شریعت در خدمت سیاست قرار میتونم و هرگز این کار نخواهد کردم. گفت شما سیاستتان پیش ببرید، هر قسم که میداره، ما شریعت و دین خود پیش میبریم. بنان هر دو راه های مترادف پهلوی هم پیش بردن، ولی در عموم مقطع تاریخ ابو حنیفه را در زندان هم انداختن، شکنجه هم کردن و بسیار کارهای کردن که چرا از فرمان خلیفه سرپیچی کرد. اینجاست که او سبب شد که در دنیای اسلام حکومت‌های دین و دولت از هم جدا بسیار وضع خوبتر از اروپایی ها پیش رفت و تمدن اسلام به اوج رسید که جهانی شد. در مقابل مثلا در اروپا مسیحیت و دیانتگرایی مسیحی حاکم بود بر تمام امور مردم و اروپا در رد ظلمت نگه داشت. این تفاوتی که ما میبینیم. بنابراین هر وقتی که ما دیدیم که در یک جامعه دین با دولت مدغم شده، او زوال جامعه بوده، چی در اروپا بود در قرون وسطا و چی در حال حاضر در دنیای اسلامی است، برای اینکه ادغام دولت صورت گرفته.
اگر اجازه بدین راجع به این موضوع مشخصا برنامه خواهیم گرفت. بخاطر که وقت برنامه تمام شده، من یک برنامه دیگر هم از این دارم. انشالله در فرصت دیگر یا فرصت‌های با حضور دانشمندان در باب این مسائل صحبت خواهیم کرد. جناب آقای حسینی تشکر از همکاریتان و همچنین جناب پروفسور استانیزی.
تشکر از شما.
سپاسگزارم.